We continue our study on the life of Samson. Today we're looking at Judges chapter 14, verses 10 through 20, and things are going downhill for Samson very quickly. In these verses, we're going to find out some more things about Samson that are really quite disturbing. I'm Dr. Mario Escobedo, and I'm happy to be your Bible study mentor.
Are you committed to growing in your faith? Do you love studying the Bible? Do you know there's still a lifetime of learning ahead? Welcome to your Bible Study Mentor, the podcast designed to ignite in you a passion for doing in-depth Bible study consistently. Here, you'll be encouraged and challenged to develop a passion for daily Bible study and hear biblical insights for cultivating a lifetime of spiritual growth. Get ready to grow. And now, here's your Bible study mentor, Dr. Mario Escobedo.
Hello, my faithful Bible study companions, my compadres in Bible study. I'm your host and your Bible study mentor, Dr. Mario Escobedo. Welcome to another episode. We've been talking about the life of Samson, and we're continuing today with Judges chapter 14, verses 10 through 20. We're going to find out some things about Samson that, I don't know, kind of cringy for me, at least for me. I wonder what you think. I want to remind you, a lot of you have already taken advantage of this, but I want to remind you that there is a free study guide that accompanies every lesson that we're covering in this podcast over the life of Samson. That study guide is titled When Strength Isn't Enough, Principles of Spiritual Growth Drawn from the Life of Samson. Absolutely free. There will be a link in the description where you can get that. And the study guide is going to help you go even deeper on your study of the life of Samson. There's going to be some reflection questions and things like that will help you really get some more benefit and value out of our study of the life of Samson. The previous episode, we looked at Judges chapter 14, verses 1 through 9, and we find out some pretty interesting character flaws about Samson. I told you how I felt that he was being very disrespectful to his parents. We saw him kill a lion, eat some honey from the body of the lion, and most importantly, or most concerning, I would suppose, from those verses, is that Samson went down to Timnah, and he saw a Philistine woman there that caught his eye, and he wants to marry her. Well, what we have now is Samson going back with his parents to Timnah to have this banquet, this feast to, I suppose, make it official that he's going to marry this Philistine woman. So we're going to start reading, and I'm going to stop. This has been our usual procedure as we're going through the life of Samson. I read, and then I stop where I feel it's appropriate to make some comments that will be insightful and will help us either to understand the story better, draw out some insights, or make some spiritual applications. So let's begin reading. Judges chapter 14 verses 10 through 20 is the focus for today. This is what we're going to be seeing. This is what it says. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, for so the young men used to do. I'm going to stop right there. Very quick observation. The word for feast is usually attached to the idea of drinking. Like there's going to be some drinking taking place here. Now, we know from Samson's Nazirite vow that he is forbidden. He is prohibited from any kind of product from the vine. So definitely he cannot drink. Now, the text does not say whether Samson drank at this feast or not. But I think he did. I mean, we've already seen that he's a man who kind of slips in his convictions. He's surrounded by everyone else who's drinking, presumably. I just don't know that Samson could resist that kind of temptation. And let's say that he doesn't drink. Let's say he doesn't even drink a drop of wine. I'm just thinking, why would you put yourself in such a compromising condition or situation? You have this Nazirite vow. You know that you're not supposed to be anywhere near any fruit of the vine, and yet you're throwing this party. You're the one throwing this party. And yes, we can say, well, this is what was a custom. Yeah, but Samson was called to live consecrated. He was supposed to live a life separate, not like everyone else, much less not like the Philistines. Yet he's putting himself in this compromising situation. It's bad enough that he went down to Timnah and he wants to marry a Timnite, a Philistine woman, but now, he's putting himself in compromising situations. We can say that he already tore or broke one of the vows of the Nazirite when he scooped honey from the dead carcass of a lion. And now, we can surmise. I can't prove it, but I think he's flirting with breaking his second Nazirite vow. In this case, partaking of fruit from the vine. Let's keep reading verse 11. This is what it says. As soon as the people, presumably the people from Timnah, As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. Now, I want to stop right there. And a couple of questions that come to my mind. First of all, why wasn't it Samson who chose his own companions? Why was it that the Philistines had to choose the companions for him? We're not told. Is it because this was the custom of the Philistines? You're marrying a Philistine girl, so we're going to get you Philistine companions. Maybe. I would think that Samson, even though he's marrying a Philistine girl, he would still be able to choose his companions. But I'm going to tell you something. We're going to see this play out in the life of Samson. Samson is always by himself. Anytime he goes out to any kind of battle, anytime he fights against the Philistines, he's by himself. In this case, his parents went with him to Timnah, but I don't know. I get the sense that Samson doesn't have really any companions of his own, any friendships, any relationships. And so he shows up to Timnah by himself. Maybe the Philistines were expecting him to bring his entourage, for him to bring his own companions, but he doesn't, so they provide some for him. I don't know. But it is interesting to me that in this case, the Philistines brought 30 companions. Samson didn't bring his companions or companions of his own. Now, the other thing that stands out to me from this verse, from verse 11, is that it says, as soon as the people saw him, they brought out the companions. And I'm wondering, again, can't prove this, but this is that spirit of curiosity that I talk about so much in these episodes, that I want to approach the text with the spirit of curiosity. And the best way I can do that is asking questions about the text, even if I might not be able to answer them. That's okay. I want to dig into the text as much as I can. That's just good Bible study method, in my opinion. And so I'm wondering, is there anything significant about the text saying that the companions were chosen for Samson when the people saw him? Notice that. As soon as the people saw him, what was it that they saw in Samson that moved them to find companions for Samson? And 30 of them. I mean, that's quite a bit of companions. I found one commentator who said something to this effect, that when the Philistines saw Samson, they were afraid of him. Again, he's speculating as well. That's not directly or explicitly stated in the text. And so, not taking any chances, this is what this commentator said, they surrounded him with bodyguards. Now, that's an interesting take. And I do find it interesting that it's when they saw Samson that they brought 30 companions. Maybe they smelled something that wasn't right. They say, something's not right here. Why is this Philistine guy or this Israelite guy coming to marry a Philistine girl? I thought they weren't allowed to do that. Or was it Samson's physique? You know, interestingly enough, for all his feats of strength and his military victories against the Philistines, we're never given a description of Samson's physique. Was he massive? Was he not? Who knows? But something triggered the Philistines to surround Samson with companions. Interesting to me. Keep reading, verse 12. Samson said to them, let me now put a riddle to you. Literally in the Hebrew, it says, let me riddle you a riddle. Very interesting wording. If you can tell me what it is within the 7 days of the feast, that's how long this feast lasted, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. But, verse 13, if you cannot tell me what it is, then you will give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And they said to him, okay, riddle us. Put your riddle that we may hear it. And here's the riddle that Samson presents to them. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. Now, you and I, as readers, know, we've read the previous passage, verses 1 through 9. We know that there was no possible way that anybody could figure out the riddle, because it had to do with something that only Samson knew about. Remember that he didn't even tell his parents when he had killed the lion, and he didn't tell them from where the honey had come that he gave them. And this is obviously what Samson is referring to in this riddle. And so here Samson presents a riddle, and there's just no way that they could figure it out. Now, you would imagine that you present a riddle as difficult as a riddle may be, you present the riddle because there is a way for somebody to figure out the riddle. If they use reasoning, if they use logic, if they have some prior knowledge of events or what have you, okay. But in this case, absolutely nobody other than Samson knew how to answer this riddle because no one but Samson knew the events behind the riddle. And so in my opinion, I think you see a bit of the treachery of Samson here. That, he knows that there's just no way that anybody could answer this riddle, and so he's not playing fair. And so I have to wonder, did Samson share the riddle because he was just so confident that the Philistines would never figure it out? Or maybe, okay, let's get a bit more spirit of curiosity, right? Let's ask questions about the text. Let's just see what happens when we are curious and ask questions of the text. Is this riddle Samson's urge or his need to confess? He needs to get off his chest what he had done and how he had tricked his parents. Is this his way of doing it? Like, man, this was so incredible what happened. I killed a lion and then honey came out of that lion and I ate it. I gotta tell somebody, but I can't tell anybody. And so maybe this is his way of getting off his chest what he had done without really telling anybody. I don't know, but it's interesting to me. I do think you see a little bit of deception, more of a character flaw in Samson when he shares this riddle and he knows that there's absolutely no way that anybody could figure out this riddle. Or was there? Because what we read in the following verses is the following. The end of verse 14 says, "And in 3 days they could not solve the riddle. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, 'Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is.' And then look at what will happen. 'Lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us?'" Now, this to me seems a bit drastic in my opinion, right? Was what these men would lose in the bet so significant that it warranted assassinating an entire family? Apparently for them it was. I don't know how much the 30 linens and the 30 costumes or outfit changes, I don't know how much that was going to cost, but apparently it was too much for them to pay. Whether they didn't have the finances for it, or they just could not stomach, they could not swallow having to pay this miserable Israelite because he outsmarted them. They did not want to pay. And they went to the point of saying, "We will kill you," meaning Samson's soon-to-be bride, called his wife in this verse. "We will kill you and your entire family if you don't find out the answer to this riddle." Maybe it was just that these men's pride had been hurt. Again, they would not be outsmarted by a lowly, good-for-nothing Israelite. We're the ones in charge over the Israelites. There's no way this guy is going to trick us and get the best of us. So apparently these men were not at all comfortable with this deal that they had struck with Samson. And you notice what it says at the end of verse 15. It says, "Have you invited us here to impoverish us?" Now, they're talking to Samson's soon-to-be wife. And so apparently, with this accusation, apparently these men thought that the woman and her family were in on Samson's scam. Let's call it a scam. Because when they say, "Did you bring us here?" the "you," they're not just talking to her. "Did you individually bring us here?" The "you" there in the original language is plural. So I'm in Texas, and even though I don't use this word, a lot of people in Texas do. What they were saying is, did y'all bring us here just to scam us, just to impoverish us? And I don't think the Philistines were referring to the woman and Samson. I think that they were talking about her family because the threat was against her family. And so these Philistine men were implicating not only the woman in this scam, but her entire family. And so how do you think the woman is going to react confronting that kind of a threat? Well, she's going to do what she has to do. So we keep reading verse 16. "And Samson's wife wept over him and said, 'You only hate me. You do not love me.'" Okay, here comes a manipulation. Not only is Samson a manipulator, but, well, So is she, apparently. You've put a riddle to my people, and you have not told me what it is. And he said to her, behold, I haven't told my father nor my mother, and you think I'm going to tell you? Now, it's interesting. We saw in the previous episode, where we looked at Judges 14, 1 through 9, Samson didn't want to tell his parents about the lion and about the honey because, this is what I proposed, because he knew how they would react. They would probably tell him something like, Samson, you're not supposed to be doing that. You need to go reconsecrate yourself. And Samson wasn't about to do that. And Samson here, again, I think he's being a bit deceptive. He's making this so secretive. Hey, I didn't even tell my parents about this because this riddle is so secret. But no, Samson, you're lying. You didn't tell your parents because you were being self-serving. You didn't want to go reconsecrate yourself. So don't make up that kind of a lie. The other question I have when I read this in verse 16 is the following. If this woman truly was right in his eyes. Remember, twice Samson told his parents, get her for me because she is right in my eyes. He said that once, and then a second time, the text says again that she was right in Samson's eyes. Well, if this woman truly was right in Samson's eyes, why wouldn't Samson trust her with the answer to the riddle? I mean, that's a valid question. He says, she's right. She's the right one. I love her implicitly. I trust her. But apparently he doesn't trust her enough. Apparently she wasn't all right in his eyes. And maybe Samson, we find out, and I think this is an accurate portrayal of Samson, meaning what I'm about to say. I think Samson was driven by nothing more than infatuation and lust. He saw this woman. What did he know about her? Yeah, how did he know that she was right? All he did was see her. He was being driven by infatuation and lust. And I think he betrays that here when he does not reveal to her the answer, or he doesn't want to reveal to her the answer to this riddle. She wasn't right in his eyes. And then we go on to verse 17. She wept before him the 7 days that their feast lasted, and on the seventh day he told her because she pressed him hard. And so here we see the first occasion of Samson being manipulated and betrayed by a woman. And we'll see something similar happen in the Delilah story. We probably know that story very well. But here we see for the first time the influence, the incredible sway that women hold over Samson's life, and to some extent, the way women are able to direct Samson. And the bad thing is that it's the wrong type of women who are guiding and directing Samson in this case. And I want you to notice something in verse 17. Okay, so she cries. She's just pressuring him. Finally, he gives in, not so much because he loves her. That's not what the text says, that Samson finally realized, you know what? I can trust this woman. I do love her. I'm gonna tell her the answer to my riddle. No, it was like, okay, look, if I can just get you to shut up and leave me alone, if I tell you, will you leave me alone? And so that's what happens. And it's interesting to me, the way that the text reads, there's kind of a sequence of events that happen very quickly, one right after the other. She's crying, she presses him, and then he tells her the answer to the riddle. And then almost like in the very next step, like she's crying. Oh, you don't love me. He tells her, and then she told the riddle to her people. And the sequence of the text for me feels this way. Tell me. No, I don't want to tell you. I can't trust you. Tell me. Finally, he tells her, and then she just stops crying instantly and leaves the room to go tell the people. I mean, that's the sense I get from the text. I don't know that it actually happened that way, but that's just how things feel, like those crocodile tears, right? She's crying. She gets what she wants. She dries up her tears and she leaves instantly. Feels that way as you read the text. And so she goes and she tells these 30 companions, or the men of the city, what had happened in terms of the answer to the riddle. Now, Samson doesn't tell her, or we don't know exactly what he tells her. Does he just give her the answer to the riddle, or does he tell her the whole event? We don't know, but he tells her enough that she feels confident that she can go back to the people who had been threatening to burn her down, along with all of her family, and give them the answer. And so she goes, verse 18, and the men of the city said to him on the seventh day before the sun went down. I mean, right in the nick of time, right before the bet is about to expire. And this is their answer in verse 18. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Now, what's interesting to me, I'm not the first one to point this out, is that they answer the riddle with a riddle. Isn't that interesting? They use the words honey and lion. Okay, so the answer is in there. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Honey and lion. Okay, they answer the riddle, but they answer it with the riddle of their own. They answer it with two questions. What's sweeter than honey? What's stronger than a lion? I just find that fascinating. What an ironic twist to this story, that Samson thinks he's got them cornered. He's got them trapped. He presents this unsolvable riddle, and they come back with the riddle of their own. What's sweeter than honey? What's stronger than a lion? Now, some scholars have suggested, and I find this so interesting, that they didn't give an answer, but they gave an answer, right? But their answer was two questions. And that the answer to their two questions is one answer, meaning the answer to the question, what is sweeter than honey? There's an answer to that. And the answer to the question, what's stronger than a lion, is the same answer. And some scholars have suggested that the answer to these questions is love. What's sweeter than honey? Love. What's stronger than a lion? Love. And this is the implication that the men of Timnah, these Philistine men, are saying, Samson, you're a sucker for love. What's your downfall is love, or what you perceive to be love. And meaning that no matter how strong Samson is, he's not stronger than what he purports to be love, probably lust. The power of love overcame him. Now, it's somewhat romantic, but as you look at this in the fuller context of the life of Samson, it's not that he was driven by love. I think he was driven by lust. Regardless, they answer his riddle. And so Samson's reply in the second half of verse 18, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle. He's telling them, you cheated. You guys are cheaters. Now, it's interesting, right? You can't cheat a cheater. And Samson, he's able to call them out as cheaters. He recognizes they cheated, but he's a cheater himself. I mean, he was manipulating them from the beginning. He presented an unsolvable riddle to them, and now he's getting upset that they called his bluff, and they out-tricked him. And so as we begin reading verse 19, the events just happen so quickly in verses 19 and 20. And there's a question here that I have of verse 19 that I can't fully answer it. I'm still wrestling with the text. I'm still chewing on this for a little bit, and I'll get to that in just a second. But verse 19 says, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. This is the second time this happens. And he went down to Ashkelon and struck down 30 men of the town and took their spoil and gave the garments to those who had told the riddle. In hot anger, he went back to his father's house. And Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Maybe one of these 30 that he had been assigned or had been assigned to him as their best man. Okay, a couple of things that we need to mention here. And I'll come back to the big one in just a little bit. But in my opinion, as I read this, I think it's pretty obvious that Samson never thought that his guests were going to guess the riddle. It never crossed his mind that they were going to guess the riddle. And so when he made the bet, I think that he probably had no way of paying on the bet because he was so confident that he's not going to have to pay up. And so getting the garments in the way that he did in such a brutal, violent fashion, I think that was, that was his backup plan. That was his fallback plan because he was really not expecting to have to pay up on this bet. And so he has to do what he does, right? And I asked myself a few questions. Were the guests, the people that he had to pay, were they aware of where Samson had gotten the garments? Probably not. And I say this for the following reason. Samson, we're told here, he's in Timnah, right? And let me put it, for those who are watching on YouTube, let me put up a map so we can get a better perspective here. Samson was in the city of Timnah. And let me use the cursor to show you where Timnah is here on the map. And he could have gone to the city of Ekron, which was not very far from Timnah, not very far at all. And he could have gotten the robes from the Philistines in the city of Ekron. However, pardon me, look on the map And look at how far Ashkelon was from Timnah. As a matter of fact, using the roads of that time, Samson would have had to go through Ekron to get to Ashkelon from Timnah. And so I wonder, why didn't Samson just get the garments from the Philistines who were in Ekron? I mean, he had to have gone through Ekron, but he went way, way, way out of his way, all the way down to Ashkelon. And so I'm wondering, is it because of the proximity of Ekron to Timnah? Maybe he stopped in Ekron and was thinking, okay, I'll get them here. But then he thought twice about it. Whoa, these guys are kind of close to Timnah. I think word is going to get back to Timnah pretty quickly, and I'm just too close. And so maybe Samson goes all the way down to Ashkelon so that the citizens of Timnah wouldn't know from where he had gotten the garments. And then I think about the people down in Ashkelon. I mean, they're miles away. I don't even know if they know about Samson. But what must have been their reaction when this attack comes out of absolutely nowhere and was completely unprovoked? Like, they have no idea what's going on. And all of a sudden, this madman, pardon me, all of a sudden, this madman comes into their city and just starts killing people and stripping them of their clothing. Which leads me to another question. When he gave them the garments, were the garments full of blood? I don't know. I would think so, unless he choked them to death. I don't know how he did it, but I would imagine that there had to have been some kind of blood on the garments, and maybe in a final act of vengeance, he gives the people in Timnah, he gives them these garments, and they're stained with blood. And he says, here, I'm paying on my debt. Wait a minute. What's all this blood? Don't worry about it. I made good on my debt. I don't know. Just question spirit of curiosity. The spirit of curiosity, right? These poor people in Ashkelon. Yeah, they're Philistines. I get it. They're Philistines, but they had nothing to do with this. And I also wonder, how long must it have taken for the news of this attack to make its way throughout the Philistine towns, back to Timnah, and back to all the major cities in the Philistine region? Who knows? Who knows? And the question that really intrigues me is at the very beginning of verse 19, where it says, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him. I don't know what to do with that, because I don't know if what that means is that the Spirit is the one who led Samson to do this. My question is what Samson did in this passage in line with what God had in mind, or was Samson just kind of going rogue? I tend to think that Samson was going rogue. I don't think this was necessarily in God's plan. Remember, in verses 1 through 9, we learned that this whole thing with the woman in Timnah, was permitted by God. This was from God because the Lord was looking for an occasion to begin to defeat the Philistines. But I don't know if this is what was in God's plan. And so, yeah, I do struggle a little bit with where it says the Spirit of the Lord came on Samson, and then Samson went and did what he did. But I do think that this is Samson acting with the power of the Spirit of the Lord on him, but not necessarily acting within the plan of God. And this is what I mean. We're told that the spirit of the prophet is subject to the prophet. Now, I know that doesn't apply directly here, but I think what that means is that the Lord gives gifts to individuals, but that individual is responsible for how they use and how they manage that gift. And sometimes they can do so irresponsibly. And so I think that might be the case here with Samson, that the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson. And I think the Spirit came upon him so that Samson could begin to deliver the people of Israel from the Philistines. That was the whole purpose of his life. But Samson took it in a completely different direction. And there have been a few times already in the book of Judges that after a victory, the deliverer rallies the people of Israel, or a couple of the tribes of Israel, to go and then finish off what he started. And so this is why I think Samson goes rogue, because after he kills the 30 men in Ashkelon, he comes back, he gives the Timnites their pay on this bet. That would have been a great moment for Samson to go back to Israel and say, listen, this just happened. I killed 30 Philistines. We've got them on their heels. Let's go. I will lead you. God is giving them into our hands. God is starting this, and here's how he has started it through me by doing this. Let's go. Let's attack now. Let's strike while the iron is hot. Let's do it now. And that was the precedent. That had happened multiple times before in the book of Judges. I think, for example, of the story of Ehud, way back in chapter 3 of the book of Judges, where Ehud went and he killed Eglon, king of Moab, and he stuck a dagger in him, and a very gruesome affair. But then he escapes back to Israel, but he rallies the troops and he says, let's go and let's finish the job. You kind of expect that that's what would happen here with Samson, but he doesn't do it. In fact, in the next chapter, we're going to see that Samson goes back to Timnah to see his wife, the very woman who betrayed him in this passage that we're studying. And what's very disturbing for me is, remember, Samson, the whole purpose of his life was to begin to deliver Israel from the hand of the Philistines. And so here you see Samson's, I'm going to use air quotes here, Samson's quote unquote victory. But it was a victory for Samson only. It didn't do anything for the people of Israel. Nothing whatsoever. It didn't advance their position. It didn't improve their situation. Absolutely nothing. This victory was for Samson only. And in fact, Samson acted in this case not out of his love, not out of his zeal for Israel, not out of his love and loyalty and zeal for God. He didn't act to see Israel delivered. It was all personal vengeance. You plowed with my heifer. Now I need to get you back. So he goes and he kills 30 Philistines. It wasn't for Israel. It wasn't for God. It wasn't to fulfill the mission of his life. It was all for him. His selfish, petty desires, personal vengeance. And what's worse, we're going to see this several times in Samson's life. What's worse is that Samson created this situation on his own. It's not as if the Philistines came to attack the people of Israel, and this is why Samson had to react the way that he did. It's not as if they forced him to go down to pick a Philistine wife. No, Samson put himself in this situation. Samson created this situation all on his own. And what we're going to see several times in Samson's life is that his quote unquote victories were simply simply Samson getting himself out of bad situations that he created for himself. And that's sad for me. Because as I read the story of Samson, and the more I read it, the more I dig into it, the deeper I get into it, I just think about wasted potential. A life that was derailed early on. A life that missed the mission it had been created to fulfill. This is what I see in the life of Samson. And, I've noted this in the previous 2 episodes that unfortunately I do see myself displaying a lot of the same characteristics that Samson displays. Maybe not to that extent, but still. And I wonder sometimes if the situations I get myself into, or I find myself in, that I'm very quick to say, oh, the devil did this. Oh, this is a trial from the Lord. No, sometimes it's just something that it's the consequences of the decisions that I've made. And so I have to get myself out of that. And because I'm investing so much time and energy and resources and all these things to get myself out of a situation that I got myself into, I don't do anything to benefit the people of God. Because I have to be so consumed and so worried about what I'm doing and what I need to do to get myself out of this situation that I can't serve the people of God the way that God intended for me to serve him. And I would dare say that I'm not the only one who's been through that type of situation. And Samson isn't the only one. There's a little bit of Samson in all of us, I would say. And I think that unfortunately, again, I'm not the only one, but I think that unfortunately, probably a lot of us, we're spending so much time getting ourselves out of situations that we got ourselves in through bad decisions, bad influences, bad actions. And when we do that, we're taking away from the blessing and the benefit that we can be for the people of God. And we're not fulfilling the mission to which God called us, that calling to use our gifts for God. And yeah, we may be using our gifts, but if it's only to get ourselves out of bad situations, what good are they doing for the rest of the people of God? And I learned this from Samson, and it's a call to reality. It's a call of warning to me. Mario, be careful with your decisions, your actions, because every action, every decision has a consequence, and you have no control over that consequence. And I'd also say that from Samson, I'm learning that it's difficult to follow through with the assignment God gave you when you're constantly putting yourself in compromising situations. Oh, man. I think that's something that we're all going to have to chew on for just a little bit and begin to analyze, where am I? What am I doing? What situations am I putting myself in? Am I compromising myself? Am I compromising my calling? Am I compromising the gifts and the assignment that God has given me? And if so, friends, it's time to course correct. It's time that our lives not play out like the way the life of Samson played out, that we course correct as soon as possible. We get back on track. We get back on mission. Oh, Samson. We're going to see more in the life of Samson. And as I mentioned, unfortunately, things just keep going downhill. They're getting from bad to worse to worser to worsest. Sorry for that. But things are going to get pretty bad for Samson, and we're going to follow that journey. And I'm not here to throw stones at Samson, even though, goodness, I think the picture being painted of Samson here is not a positive one at all. Again, I see so much of Samson in me that I'm cautious. I'm cautious of being too judgmental of him, because it's like the Bible says, right? Like holding a mirror up to myself and saying, hold up, Mario, there's a lot of Samson in you. Be careful. Learn from him. Learn from his mistakes. Friend, let me remind you, got this free resource designed to help you go deeper and learn more, give more value to you as you go through these lessons on the life of Samson. The free resource is titled When Strength Isn't Enough, Principles of Spiritual Growth, drawn from the life of Samson. Absolutely free. You can get that by clicking on the link in the description from wherever you're watching or listening. That is available to you absolutely free, and it is going to help you in your study of the life of Samson. All right, that's it for this episode. We'll be coming back with another one. We'll be looking at chapter 15 in our next episode, when Samson, oh my gosh, he just can't stay away. He goes back to Timnah, to this woman that he thinks he's in love with, the very woman who betrayed him. All right, keep studying. Remember, in-depth Bible study done consistently over time is the most important spiritual discipline you can develop to maintain a lifetime of spiritual growth. And that's what these episodes are designed to do, help you to develop that discipline and maintain a lifetime of spiritual growth. I'm your host and your Bible study mentor, Dr. Mario Escobedo. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.
That's it for today's episode of Your Bible Study Mentor. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can also invite Dr. Escobedo to your church to preach or provide training for your leaders and congregation on Bible study or leadership. Check the show notes for contact details. Also, don't forget to check the episode's description for links to Dr. Escobedo's resources, trainings, and books, all designed to nurture your spiritual growth. And finally, share this episode with someone you know who loves studying the Bible and would benefit from Dr. Escobedo's teachings. Keep growing, keep studying, and we'll see you in the next episode.